Welcome back to part 2 of my chat with Ralph and Kathy Kelly. In part 1, we discussed the impact of the death of their son, Thomas Kelly, whose life was taken as a result of an act of senseless violence when he was the victim of a one-punch assault in King's Cross in July 2012. In part 2, we're going to discuss the death of their second son, Stuart, who tragically took his own life 4 years after Thomas was killed. I think it's appropriate at this stage to say in this episode we'll be discussing suicide. If you or someone you know needs support, call Lifeline on 131114. Kathy and Ralph, welcome back.
Thank you.
Okay.
And look, I said it at the start, and I'll keep saying it. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, and I think you're really giving people a deep understanding of the impact of crime. And this podcast we talk about crime, but from 360 degrees, not just from police point of view, not from the offender's point of view, or the victim's point of view, but everyone's point of view. And I think you're giving a real good insight into how crime can affect people. And I see people like yourself that you would have gone through your whole life never expecting to be in a court, or speaking to homicide detectives, or speaking to police, or being in the media talking about justice. And it's strange how you can be thrown into situations like this, isn't it?
I think because of my childhood, I didn't have a great childhood, but I was always very anxious around police, teachers, doctors, headmasters. And suddenly my life, after Tom died, my life was immersed in this. I was immersed in all of those professions.
Yep.
And I kind of thought this is really weird because I'd run a mile to get away from a policeman or a headmaster of a school, but then suddenly I was in front of them for the next 10 years.
Yeah. Part of we talked about the changes in legislation after Thomas's death and the one-punch legislation that came in. Also the lockout laws. Do you want to talk about that, how that came about?
Yeah, I'd like to say first up, obviously this was Barry O'Farrell's brought this law in, who's Premier at the time. And Kathy and I went and met with Barry in his office in Parliament House one day, which I think was really the only time we met him. Yeah. He was, quite closed. And obviously Newcastle had the lockout laws up there, which were proven to be very effective to reduce violence. And so we brought that up with the Premier at the time, and we were kind of rebuffed, actually. He'd said this to the media multiple times, that one shoe doesn't fit all, and in no way was he going to bring lockout laws into Sydney. Yeah. And the media just kept on going, to be honest with you. And then, unfortunately, Daniel Christie was killed in almost exactly the same place as Thomas from a cowed punch as well. And we knew that we could do something from then. And so we went out on change.org with a petition, got several 100,000, signatures. And then I called the guys at change.org and said, would you print this out for me? And they said, what do you mean? I said, will you print out all of the people who have signed? And they said, no one's ever asked us to do that before. And I said, why the hell do you want that? It's boxes and boxes. I said, well, I want to deliver it to the Premier and the Attorney General. And so all these boxes were delivered to us. I put them in the back of the car. I said, Kathy, I'm up to Parliament House. I went up to Parliament House, walked in with a trolley with these boxes, and up to the reception, I said, I've got this for the Premier. And they said, well, what is it? And I said, it's a petition. They said, well, you can't do that. Petitions are banned. You can't, we don't want anything. Anyway, I said, well, no, I need to. Anyway, so they called up to the Premier's office. He wasn't in. And the person obviously said, who is it? And they said, well, it's Ralph Kelly's delivering it. And they said, oh, please, we'll take it. And then I went to the Attorney General's office and he was out as well, gave him 100 boxes. And and I think from then they started to listen. Like the Premier had nowhere to go, 2 deaths inside a year in the same place. And it was then that they got serious and started to call my friend who was an SC and started to lay out the changes. Yep. And I'd taken the family away up to a place called Calabash Bay, which is north of Sydney. And we're in this kind of a remote house on the river. And I got a call from my friend going, there's a massive breakthrough, Ralph. And he went through all of the areas and it was significant. Yeah. And he said, if you accept all of this and promise you won't go on the media again, they'll be put to Parliament. And I said, it's amazing, what you've been able to do. And obviously some of those items didn't get through. There were changes to multiple laws. Some didn't get through, but a lot did.
Yeah.
And one of those was the changes to hours of trading.
Yeah, yeah. And part of that with King's Cross, that was it changed the demographics of King's Cross, didn't it?
I think what happened with King's Cross, and again, my reflection on this is inner city Sydney was changing.
Yeah.
It was being gentrified. You know, places that were previously not so great were being bought up by investors and, and developed, and old cottages were being redone and refurbished. And, King's Cross was going through that as well. It just hadn't really been identified. It was changing. I think what it did was and let's face it, the venues were still open till 4 a.m.
Yeah.
And you could still buy drinks
Till 3.
just before 4 p.m. No, 4 p.m.
Oh, 4.
Yeah.
I thought it was 3, and then at 5, and then at 5 it opened again.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like it was any big deal.
But I think in many ways, again, we work with the venues. So I've met the venues at King's Cross. They asked to meet with me, and it's better to work with people than be an enemy.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. So we work with the Australian Hotel Association, with the venues, and we still do today. Up until this point, we still do today, and all the liquor accords in those areas that were affected. And I know a lot of owners of pubs in those regions, and the pub owners themselves have said to me, we needed this shake-up. The violence was completely out of control, which you only had to watch the news on a Saturday night or a Sunday morning to see what happened the night before.
Yeah.
And so the industry itself knew that they needed a change and it needed to be tightened up. I mean, the venues in King's Cross could only hold, I think it was 5,000 people.
Yep.
But 25 to 30,000 people would turn up.
Yeah.
On a Friday and Saturday night. Well, it was
recipe for disaster.
Absolute disaster, and no one did anything about it.
And the night that we went to the hospital for Thomas, we came off onto William Street off the Eastern Distributor because we came up from the Southern Highlands, and we turned right and went up to St Vincent's Hospital that way through the cross, and it was a sea of people walking up both sides of William Street. And I don't know whether Ralph said it to me or I said it to him, but we just oh my God, where are all these people going?
Yeah, yeah.
We had been so sheltered from that because, we were older. We hadn't been out, partying like that for a long, long time. So, yeah.
But when Tom was killed, there were 2 neurosurgeons at the hospital every weekend. When the lockout laws came in, they didn't need to be there.
Well, that's significant.
Significant facial reconstruction surgeons. I was talking to the hospital one day and they said, we've got a real problem. I said, what's the problem? He goes, because violence has decreased so much, they're not able to do as many operations. So you need a number of hours to keep your license or whatever it's called. And they're running out of patients.
Yeah.
In terms of people that needed, facial reconstructions. And I said, well, that's got to be good news, surely. And they said, of course it is.
Well, it freed up other surgery, all the elective surgeries that people were waiting, months, years to get. That was happening again. So,
I think, I think something had to change. Something had to give. And, the lockout laws, which also included no glass after midnight, so you couldn't get a glass.
And shots.
And shots were all banned, which I completely agree with. And, because if you have a shot, it takes 20 minutes for the alcohol to hit your blood.
Yeah.
And so everyone's going, well, that didn't affect me like I thought it would, so let's buy another round. And then they buy another round. So when you've had 3, you're in all kinds of problems. Yeah. So... And it was Andrew Scipione who pushed for the glasses to come out because a police officer was severely glassed while he was off duty, sitting in a bar, and he was attacked. And so Andrew really pushed for that to come in. So to us at the time, it seems, and seeing the violence and understanding, because we got to know a lot of the emergency surgeons, it seemed to make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Well, again, that's some good that's come from the tragedy of what's happened to Thomas, and it really did change the landscape of the Sydney CBD, in particular King's Cross. And as you said, something had to change. It was just getting out of hand. But,
and I think the fact that it wasn't our idea. We did suggest to the Premier to bring Newcastle's ideas down to Sydney, and we got that flat no, that's not going to happen. And it took the death of another boy for something to change. But I remember once we did an interview outside St Vincent's Hospital, and Ralph had said to the media who asked a question at the time, we don't want to be in a situation where we have lockout laws forever.
Yeah.
We're not here to advocate for that. But until we have respect again for, people that are on the street, for our emergency services, for our police officers, until we have that level of respect that we maybe once had, not saying our generation was better, but as Ralph said to you when we were having a conversation earlier, we were, as kids, we were all sort of scared of the police and people like that. We didn't go up and, swear in their faces like some people do today. And it's not just young people, it's all age groups of people that do that sort of thing sometimes. I think until we had that level of respect again, then the lockout laws were doing a job. It was saving
swinging
lives.
that pendulum, bringing it back to calm things down. And that, as you said, with the liquor industry, even they were supportive of aspects of it because it was getting too violent.
Yeah, and some of the biggest hotel owners in Sydney were completely on board. The only thing they said to me is it should have been national. Or throughout New South Wales, not just in the CBD. Yeah. It should have been done throughout the state.
And not actually excluding certain areas, because I think that's what some of the, hotel establishments were upset about, that it was affecting some but not others. And
well, the
so
King's
had it been...
Cross, and I was living at Pyrmont around that time, and it brought a lot of people over to Pyrmont. That's from...
so had it been across the board, that would have been an even playing field for everybody.
Yeah. So... the impact of Thomas's death on Stuart, how would you describe that?
Stuart had a safe place in school.
Yep.
Where he was very different to Tom, whereas Tom's school days weren't good. He was bullied quite a lot, but Stu was the total opposite. At the age of 17, 3 years after Thomas died, he was made the head boy of his boarding house, which was the largest boarding house at King's, and he was made, one of only 20 prefects in the school. And we said to his housemaster, if you go back 12 months, were you thinking that Stuart would make a good leader? And he said, no way at all. The effect of losing his brother. But the system in King's is that they vote for who they want, teachers and the other students. And Stuart had become very mature very quickly. He'd learnt a lot. And I guess he saw the world quite differently in that. And he was safe in King's. It was structure. Yeah. It was when he left King's that it started to fall to pieces.
He and I think he would have been 16 at the time, but there was he spoke to the media, and
when we came outside the Supreme Court, it was after the Crown Appeal, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
And I've got what he said here, and if you don't mind, I'm just going to read it out because I think you'd have to be proud of him. But I'll read it out and then we can talk about it. And this is from what Stuart said at that time. I now no longer have an older brother. Instead, I have a hole in my life that somehow I've come to terms with and accept. Up until now, I haven't said anything because I was too young. I've just tried to block it out. I've tried to understand over and over why, at such a young age, my brother lost his life so tragically, but I have no answers. It's been difficult for me. I've watched my family suffer on a daily basis, trying to somehow regain anything in their lives. I want Thomas's short life to have some meaning in his death, so we can change. A new fresh start, one where I believe we should have respect for one another. The reason I've wrote that down and read it out here is when I was reading it and researching for the podcast, I was just so impressed that the 16-year-old boy or young man can articulate his thoughts in such a way.
Yeah, I think, he asked us, this is when the Supreme Court threw out the previous sentencing. It was quashed and then the offender was resentenced. And Stuart had said, can I speak? Because I haven't spoken. And we spoke to a lot of people, our GP and other people. What do you think? He's only 16. And, 50% said, let him do it. He wants to do it. Give him a voice. And other people would say, no, he's too young. The effect on talking to the media would be too great on him. But we decided to go and let him talk because he wanted to. He said, I want to do it. And then right up on that day, I said to Stuart, if you feel you can't, just give me what you've written and I'll read it for you. But he, the courage in that little fella was amazing. And there would have been, I don't know, 20, 30 media there. And to stand up again at 16 to do that.
So intimidating.
Very intimidating and very, very difficult. I couldn't have done it as a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
And then 12 months later, we had a function with 750 people there. Mike Baird, the Premier's there. Andrew Scipione, a lot of people there, Clover Moore. And he made a speech in front of 750 people when he was 17.
Yeah.
And he
asked for change.
And it was mind-blowing.
He actually stood there and he said, "Premier, will you make this promise tonight?" It was incredible. And I had no idea what he's going to say. I know that Ralph sat down with him and they probably, nutted it out together what was going to be said. All Madeline and I knew was that he was going to get up and speak. Yeah. And it blew the whole room apart. It was incredible. And because of that, it became something that did circulate even nationally. It was and came about again later on, which we'll probably talk about, which wasn't the greatest outcome. But I think, he was a very outgoing young man, very well liked by his peers. He was kind of funny and all that sort of thing. But I think in reflection now that we've lost him, that a lot of that was the facade or that other face that people who go through whatever tragedy, it's a mask that you hide behind. And I really believe that he was doing that for a very long time.
Yeah.
But it made him popular amongst his peers. The friends that he was extremely close to, that he spent either 6 years at Kingsworth or 12 years from the time he was in kindergarten at Tudor House right through to Kings. There was a few in that group. Every single one of them could not believe that he took his life. That nobody saw it coming.
Yeah.
We probably should have more so, but his friends didn't.
Oh, but I think in a situation like this, and so often you hear people say, "I didn't see it coming, couldn't see it coming," but for him to, show the strength of character to get up and speak in a forum like that, or speak to the media and articulate so well as a 17-year-old, is quite incredible.
Mm.
But reading those words over, you can see how deeply what happened to Thomas affected him.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That's a continuation of a crime. A crime doesn't stop the moment it's occurred. It's the flow-on effect from it. So, did you get a sense? I think when he went to uni, he was 18.
Yeah, so he turned 18 in the January, and after he finished the HSC, we just sold our house in the Southern Highlands, and we came up to Sydney, where we were renting an apartment where Madeline was living because she was at uni, and Ralph was going backwards and forwards and being with her. And then for a period of time, once Stuart was at boarding school, Madeline was in Sydney, Ralph was in Sydney. After about 12 months after Thomas died, I said, I can't be down here by myself.
Yeah.
We have to fix this. Couldn't sell our house. Took us 4 years to sell it. The market obviously wasn't like it's been in recent times. And we just had some wonderful people band around us that would take our dog every week for a few days, and another lady came and fed our cats, and I would just jump in the car with Ralph and go to Sydney so that I wasn't by myself. And I don't know, where was I going with that? Sorry,
we were talking about university.
Oh, sorry.
So Stuart got into St Paul's College.
Yep.
At the University of Sydney. And he said it's just because they feel sorry for me that they've accepted me, because it's very difficult to get into these colleges.
And he got a scholarship to go there.
Yeah.
And so we took him that night. We had dinner with him, with all the other parents and the other boys who were starting. And at 9 p.m, the parents were asked, to leave. And then they have whatever they do at a college at night.
Yeah.
And
some sort of initiation.
He called us the following day, in the afternoon, and said about 4 p.m. and said, "Can you come and get me?" And I said, "What's wrong?" And he said, "Just come and get me." I said, "Where are you?" He said, "I'm sitting outside the RPA rooms in Newtown." I said, "Why aren't you in the university?" He said, "I'm not going back." When we got to where he was sitting in the gutter, which is totally out of character. Mm. And
with his head in his hands.
Yeah, just destroyed, completely destroyed. And we put him in the car, and so Kathy started to ask him questions. So Kathy don't ask him anything. We just need to get him out of here and get him home into a safe place. That's how bad he was, like severely broken.
He burst into tears, and we hadn't seen him cry since just after Thomas' his life support was removed.
But we went back to the university a week later to get his clothes, and we were packing up his stuff. He wouldn't come.
He wasn't with us, yeah.
And Kathy said, so Kathy has OCD, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
I say it's a husband. And she said, because Kathy had made his bed.
That day when we arrived for the first time.
Right.
And she said to me, he hasn't slept in this because it's complete, and only an OCD person would know this. It has not changed since I made it. He didn't sleep here. Where was he that night? And that was what really alerted us that something terrible may have come about that night. So at Stuart's funeral, Catherine Byrne came up to me, who was one of the deputy commissioners to Scipione, and said, can you call me tomorrow? So I did, and she said, look, we can investigate his death if you'd like us to, or you could get a private investigator. And I said, Catherine, if you could do it, because we don't have a lot of money, that'd be great. So there was an investigation, which didn't go too well. So I took it over and spent the next year meeting people and talking to people and trying to understand what went on at that college that night. And it's then that there was a lot of all these other things arose. Other people have died in those colleges, not just St Paul's, but at the University of Sydney. And I got to speak to the Vice-Chancellor quite a bit, and he said to me, I said, we need to change the culture in these colleges. It's all this male culture, this entitlement that they have to do whatever they like and not respect anybody else on the campus. And he said to me, Ralph, it will take over 100 years to change the college and to change the culture in these colleges. It's ingrained over generations. And I said, Michael, you can't be serious because there's only 200 or 300 people in each college. Surely you can change it. He goes, you just won't be able to do it. And I think then Elizabeth Broderick came in and she was invited by the colleges, because the colleges aren't owned by the university. Yeah. They're independently owned and run, although the land is owned by the university. And Elizabeth started to do, on both the female colleges and the male colleges, this massive study into the culture of the colleges. And St Paul's refused to be a part of it and said, no. And
we'll do our own investigation.
That's a bit concerning.
So Elizabeth went and did all the other colleges, and then in the end, St Paul said, we need to be a part of this, so they did. And she started to she put in all these recommendations for change, so making them co-ed, not only just having private school kids at these, but to bring in state schools so that there's more of a much more diverse, because it wasn't diverse. It was just elite private schools. And, hopefully the culture is now changing with her recommendation and they're better places. But I think entitlement that comes from the private schools into the universities, and this is global, we're not just talking about Australia, is criminal. There are criminal activities happening in those colleges that shouldn't, are above, they see themselves above the law.
And Ralph always said that whilst suicide isn't a crime and Stuart took his own life, what precedes it might just well be a crime. Yeah. And I think we both feel to this very day that something horrendous happened to him that night. He was chatting to a girl online in Canada, and after he died, she approached us some way. It was all online. We didn't actually have a verbal conversation with her, did we? And she did say at one point to Ralph that she asked Stuart one time what happened at St Paul's that one night that he was there, and he said, if you ever ask me anything about that again, I'll cut off all contact with you. Okay. So I think as a parent, as his mother, I know in my heart that something horrendous happened to him that night, because he wasn't the sort of boy that just left the college and didn't sleep in his bed and went to a mate's place or was roaming the streets of Sydney. It just, I know people think that their kids are all perfect and that they would never do any of those sorts of things, but we knew our son and he would never have been out wandering the streets of Sydney. He also told us that as part of the initiation, they were all doused in alcohol. Yeah. And after we left the dinner, they were told to go and change into their orientation uniform, which was like a T-shirt and shorts and runners and stuff. And when we picked Stuart up from the medical centre, the RPM Medical Centre, he was in a clean pair of shorts and T-shirts and clean pair of shoes. And when we went back a week later, he'd told us that he'd rinsed his clothes out in the shower and left them in his room. And that's exactly where they were. They were hanging over the chair and they'd dried by that stage, but his shoes still stunk of alcohol, the other pair of shoes that he had.
Right.
So he described to us kind of, certain events, but wouldn't tell us what happened. So, I think we hoped by, trying to get a coronial inquest that, there may have been some answers. And a part of me hopes that one day, somebody might have enough empathy for our family that was there that night to come forward and really let us know what happened, but we probably may never know.
Was there an inquest?
No, there wasn't. I started to meet with the head of the college.
Yeah.
And who I think was a Rhodes Scholar, like very well-educated man. And I asked him all these questions about what happened that night, who was there. And his story was so full of holes. I was just sitting there thinking to myself, oh, my God, this is ridiculous. And unfortunately, the police, it was from Manly Police Station, the detective, I don't think had been in that role for long, and obviously she tried her best. But when she'd interviewed him, she accepted everything he was saying.
Right.
But as a dad,
you
go to lower levels in the conversation to actually pull out the information you need rather than just accepting what someone's telling you. So in the end, I just gave up again because it'd been 2 years. Yeah. And Andrew Scipione asked me, did you get an autopsy? Was an autopsy performed on Stuart? And when we got Thomas's autopsy back, because we'd given his organs were all taken, he weighed way under what his weight was. And the description of the autopsy really affected both of us, but probably more Kathy because of the incisions to retrieve the organs. So the coroner had, when we went to see Stuart in Glebe, in the Glebe court, when we finally got to see his body, which was about 2 days after he'd taken his life, we asked for actually my sister was there to support us, and we didn't want an autopsy done of Stuart.
Because of what we've been through with Thomas.
Yeah. And so we had asked the coroner not to perform one if they could tell by
the toxicology that he'd taken his life with an overdose, which we knew he had.
Yeah.
And so no autopsy was done on Stuart. And we'd become quite good friends with Andrew Scipione. He's a nice man. He'd call me at Christmas.
Yeah, decent person.
Yeah, while he was still commissioner, he'd call me and say, this is Andrew. He'd always come through on a no number, so I never picked it up in case it was media. But as soon as he spoke, you knew exactly who it was. He'd go, Ralph, it's Andrew here. I'm just letting you know that Joy and I are thinking of you and Kathy and the family this Christmas. Please, here's my mobile. Call me whenever you need me. And I thought, how can a police commissioner call so many people? And that actually gave me faith in humanity, that the police actually do care about all of us, and the homicide division especially. And and I've always had the deepest respect for police, and it saddens me to think the way we treat our paramedics and all our emergency services. And if I walk past a policeman on the street, I'll always say, good morning, thank you for what you're doing. And they look at me like I'm mad, which is really sad because it's ingrained probably in them that the public hate them.
Yeah.
But who do we call when we call our emergency service, whether it's a paramedic, a fireman, or a police officer to help us. And I just kind of think, wow, what have we come to? But unfortunately, we met Andrew in a coffee shop of his choosing in the city.
After he wasn't
police commissioner, he was retired and living up on the Central Coast. And he said, of course, I'll meet you if you ever want to meet, I will. And one of the first questions was, what did the autopsy say? And we said we didn't get one. He said, and many people have said, it would appear that Stuart was sexually abused that night.
Right.
And had we had an autopsy,
maybe there would be some information.
We may have known.
Yeah.
But, we chose to do that because we'd already been through the devastation of losing one son and going through all of that. And, a similar thing happened in relation to organ donation. The coroner rang Ralph and said, whilst Stuart was already deceased and there's not many organs that can be retrieved, we can use his eyes. Would you donate them? And Ralph said, look, I don't think so, but let me speak to Kathy and and Madeline, and he did, and we all just said no straight away. And not because we didn't want to help somebody, but we knew that, the donation of his eyes could give someone sight, but it wasn't necessarily going to save a life. So we just felt we'd given enough, and we said no to that. But I think I don't know how you feel, but I kind of regret that we didn't have the autopsy now, because it may have given us some answers that we didn't get.
Yeah, it's hard not having those answers.
Yeah, and I think, both our boys' deaths is equally devastating, but there's something about losing a child or somebody that you love to suicide is there's just that, that bit more pain because you just don't understand it. I mean, Thomas died happy. He was holding a girl's hand. Well, hopefully he was happy. Hopefully he didn't see anything coming. Hopefully he didn't feel any pain. But Stuart obviously was in immense pain for a long time, and he didn't feel that he could even talk to us.
Yeah.
And we loved him. And I think he even wrote something or said something at some point that he felt that he had not a single person in the world to talk to, and that nobody cared about him. And, and for a parent to read that or hear something like that, you just feel like, well, where did we go wrong? What did we do? Why didn't we pick it up? There's always going to be the what ifs.
There always is, and I think people are just by nature are very hard on themselves when a loved one does commit suicide. They're always, if only I did this, if only I did that, but you don't see it coming.
And, of course, then, there's all the blame that we put on one another at times, which you don't necessarily mean, but you do it when you have a fight because, oh, well, if you hadn't have done this or you didn't do that or you were a terrible mother or you're a terrible father, you say all that stuff and, God, you regret it. But there's so much pain and anger that's building up inside you that sometimes it takes the smallest thing, like in any disagreement in any marriage or relationship, you just explode and you say all these terrible things because you've just been through so much and there's no outlet. Because if we go back to that, what we said before, that, people come up to you and they say all this blah, blah, blah stuff, but all you want is to be able to express yourself.
Yeah.
And I think what's really weird is, and this may sound very strange, is that it's probably like an animal behaviour, but your children have a distinct smell. As an aroma about them. And, Thomas did and so did Stuart. So you'd walk into the boys' bedrooms, months after they were gone, and you could still smell them.
Yeah.
And that was, I said to Kathy, am I going mad? Is it just me? Or do you have this, can you smell them? She said, absolutely. It lasts, it lingers. It's a kind of a soothing thing, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I've never spoken about this before, Gary.
I can understand what you're saying, and you must have all these reflections of just little moments when you're thinking of when they were alive and different memories. With Stuart's death, did it get to a point with either one of you or both of you where you just got, I can't take this anymore? Like, I am just angry. Why has the world done this to me? What emotions did you go through?
I think that we've both had moments where you think that you don't want to live anymore.
Yeah.
And I know that I probably express that more than Ralph does. He probably feels the same thing but doesn't. I'm more open in the way that I talk. But you do wonder what's the point. Yeah. And I think if it wasn't for Madeline, I don't know that either of us would be here because we had to remain strong for her.
Yeah, of course.
And maybe that's why every disagreement, every argument, everything we've been through over the last 10 years, and even prior to losing the boys, it wasn't a perfect marriage, but I think we've stuck it out for our kids.
I think for me it was when you're alone, like driving in a car or all those, and for Kathy it's probably a lot worse because she spends quite a bit of time alone, is that it just descends even today. So with Thomas, 10 years, it's 10 years this July since he was killed. It's like a dark cloud just covers itself in you. Yeah. And the depression, the memories just haunt you in not a good way when you've reached that level. Yeah. And so I try to turn it around for myself and saying I had 18 years with both of them. And I am so grateful that I had two sons that I absolutely loved and adored. And I'm grateful that I had those moments with them, that I had the 18 years with both of them and experienced amazing things together as a family does. And that helped me for quite a long time. But, and then we'd talk to each other and, people would say as time passes, it gets better. Well, it doesn't. And and you'd know that. And, talking to other families of homicide, same thing. And then we started to say, you learn to live with the grief. Well, you actually don't learn to live with the grief. The grief doesn't go away. It stays and stays and stays. And no matter how much you try to get out of the grief, it just seems to follow you continuously. And that's the thing that people can't see with us. They'll see us laughing or smiling or, out having a glass of wine somewhere. But inside it's
the pain
just stays. It never goes. Yeah. I've lost both my parents and that was dreadful.
Yeah.
Really dreadful. When my mum died, I couldn't literally talk for 3 days. But they had a life.
Yeah.
The boys never had that life.
Yeah, because I would imagine you'd be thinking about, what if they were still alive? Would they be doing? The house would be full with their partners.
Yeah,
kids.
you only have to. I remember when Thomas first died. You'd see a little boy on the street, and you just reflect back to when he was that little boy. Every time I see all young men today, I don't know if that's because I'm getting old, but all the young men today seem really handsome. They've all got this sort of stubble going and they're all really smartly dressed and things like that. And I see the boys all the time. And funnily enough, we talked about how different the boys were and how, Thomas got bullied quite a bit at school and Stuart was this, the life of the party and everybody loved him. That last 12 or 18 months before we lost Stuart, oh my God, I think Ralph feels the same, that you would just hear Stuart maybe have a giggle at some point or he'd be walking down the hallway. And whilst they both walked really differently, because Thomas had this real weird thing, he used to sort of walk toe heel, not heel toe. I don't know what was doing that. But I think if they start that as a young enough child, the Achilles gets a bit shorter and maybe they just do that. But I remember when he used to, he'd be out somewhere and you might go past a bunch of young people and there'd be girls there. Out his chest would pop, because he was trying to be proud and confident. But not so much that. But in the end, I saw so much of Thomas in Stuart. It was just incredible. It was almost like he'd sort of morphed into him. Yeah. So, weird.
I can see the pain, but it's also nice to see the smiles on your face when you're talking about them both too, that you've got those memories, and that's something that's beautiful to hang on to, I would imagine.
It is.
And I think one of the things that has been so difficult in our marriage over the last few years and why we got to that point where we really felt we needed someone to help us was that, it all sort of comes about from the way you're brought up, from being small children, I suppose. Yeah. And Ralph was brought in the UK and his father went to boarding school at 4, which is what they used to do to their children over there. If you, had a certain level of wealth, I suppose. And so people like that tend to want to give their children the very best opportunity that they can in life. So Ralph went off to boarding school at 7.
Yeah.
And he was basically told from that tiny little boy, don't you dare cry, stiff upper lip, and blah, 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 blah. And so he became this really standalone person that really it's taken me 30-odd years to even finally understand him to a certain level because of what this person helped us with.
Yeah.
And whereas I'm the complete opposite, I need to be, consoled and held and all of that sort of stuff. And I know that we had that in our marriage, but losing the boys changed the whole dynamic. And I think losing Stuart, it just all became just too much.
Yeah.
And so then Ralph became this very, power head, foundation, work. Everything was about keeping busy, going forward. And for me, I just couldn't understand it. And all I wanted to do was talk about our children and let's look at the little videos of when they were kids, and we never do. He put it on my computer so that I could do it, but I didn't want to do it alone. I wanted to do it with him. And again, it took this, as I say, we've probably got a long way to go, but talking to this woman who then got him to understand that I was this person that needed this, this and this, and whereas Ralph needed me to lean out a bit and he needed to lean in. And, you know, whilst we have the understanding of what needs to be done, it's very hard to break that cycle.
Yeah.
And we've become really, really different people with the same basic, you know, love and needs for life. But, you know, it's changed us. And everybody we've met so many people that have lost people in different circumstances, some similar or been through whatever tragedy. And, you know, you just changed.
Oh, you'd have to change. And I'm glad you're changing Ralph, but because men are hard to change.
She didn't say she had changed.
Oh, well, she's trying.
He's a very hard nut to crack.
He's a work in progress.
A big work in progress.
We all are.
The stuff that you were channeling your energy into, the Thomas Kelly Foundation and all the other things. Let's talk about that and the difference that you've made and what you're trying to achieve with all those different projects that you guys are involved in.
So I started to meet all these people after I 3 months of sitting in a room at home. And again, going back to David Gonski, he said, please don't, if you're thinking of starting a charity, please don't do it. And then later that day, I had a meeting with Macquarie Bank, one of the directors, and said, we need to do something. The city's not good. So we started the foundation and started to work with the City of Sydney and the state government. And we decided to introduce what we call Take Care Safe Spaces into Sydney. And that's care with a K, so TK, so Take Care, after Thomas's initials. And so we opened up a safe space next to Town Hall in Sydney and then followed by King's Cross and then Darling Harbour. In the years that we've been we started operating from December 2014 and we still operate those. Here we are on a Friday night. Our teams will be
tell us what you do, because I've spoken to you about it, and I think it's just a fantastic idea and concept, and something that does make a difference.
Yeah, so we work very closely, obviously the city and the government as the key stakeholders, but then on the ground, on the streets, we work with radio contact with the police in the city and King's Cross, and also ambulance and the CCTV control centre under Town Hall. And we all share, it took 18 months for us to get this going because we all need to be on the same page, and we are all on the same page, is that we have teams of team leaders made up of medically trained staff and some paramedics as well who volunteer.
Yep.
And volunteers. And so what we do is we stretch out across the streets from 10 p.m. till 4 a.m. every Friday and Saturday night, so all night, walking down places you wouldn't normally walk. So through parks, which are pitch black, through alleyways. And the teams are out looking for people who are intoxicated or just alone on the street. So we find frequently that a group of young girls or young men as well, one may be intoxicated and the others don't want to end their night, so they leave that person on the streets. And especially for young women, there are predators, sexual predators who come in, easy prey, young girl who's almost unconscious. And so the teams support those people and get them home safely. So we diffuse violent situations before they start. And what do? We try to talk people out of it. If we can't, we call the police. Yep. And the relationship is so good, the police are literally there within 60 seconds.
Yeah.
And then we call paramedics. So people who are intoxicated and on drugs, it's a very dangerous combination. So we'll always call an ambulance. In the time that we've been running the safe space, we've helped 73,000 people.
That's incredible.
And some of those have been terrible, critical situations. Some people have died because of drinking too much alcohol or other reasons. We've opened a safe space in the city of Westminster in London, who heard about our program in Sydney and then replicated it in Soho. We worked with them for 18 months to open it, and also in Canberra. So there are parents listening to this, possibly whose kids are at home safely because of the work of these volunteers and team leaders. It's the most amazing experience when you go out, if you volunteer and you go out, because the adrenaline just rushes through your stomach, through your whole body. You're not going out to the theatre or going out for dinner. You're actually going out and you're going to see some bad things. like the paramedics, like the police. Nobody says thank you. Our teams can be vomited over.
Yeah.
You know, they see terrible things, terrible experiences, but they get up and they go out every single weekend for the sake of looking after other people.
And these are volunteers.
Predominantly volunteers, majority of volunteers. And, you know, our main volunteer, Bo, has done 500 nights. And most people go, well, yeah.
Shout out to Bo.
It's a night. No, it's the most incredible young man. And I was thinking to myself the other day, how can I explain this to actually, you know, to show what people's like? When you go out, you don't get home till 5 or 6 in the morning. So you have to leave at 8 p.m. and then, so you're working a big time.
Yeah.
And so the best way to describe this is if you're in economy class on a plane flying from Sydney to London and it's not a great kind of airline that you're flying on, that's the feeling you feel when you get to bed. You feel shattered.
Yeah.
Yet these volunteers get up every weekend, Friday, Saturday night, and go back out and back out and back out.
Yeah.
Some of them live for it. They're really.
Yeah. And Bo said to me one day, we look after the volunteers. You know, we give them tickets to the footy when we can, or to concerts and things like that. And we'd taken the team out on Harbour Cruise for dinner, and we got back to into Darling Harbour, and Bo said we're just standing on the shore, and Bo came over and said, "Ralph, I love you."
Yeah.
And I have to say I was a little shocked. And I thought, what do I say? So I said,
"Come on, Ralph, say it back."
Bo, I love you. And again.
Bo's lucky he doesn't say it to me. Sorry.
And again, I reflected on that conversation for days later. And I thought, he loves me because it's a family.
Yeah.
He's part of our family. And they're doing it because of what happened to Thomas.
Yeah.
And I suddenly realised how important this was to the volunteers and to people who come out and see what Sydney's like at night.
Yeah.
You know, and if I talk about what's going to happen on the streets tonight, literally tonight, so we're post-COVID, we're post the lockout laws, is we're seeing a lot of self-harm in very young people, like terrible self-harm on the streets at night, because liquor plays a part in that as well. People, you know, drink and then they try to kill themselves. And if it weren't for our teams, and in very recent weeks, we had a young girl who terribly harmed herself. She would be dead today if our teams went on the street that night. They found her first. They knew they had 5 minutes to do something or she'd die. And the paramedics arrived, 20 minutes later. But that young girl is alive today because of the work of the volunteers. It's quite amazing what they do.
That's incredible. And there's not a lot of people don't know about it. It's behind the scenes type work. How, if people wanted to support it, how can they support it?
It's on our website, so staykind.org.
Yeah. Okay. So Stay Kind.
Stay Kind, yeah. Yep. So after Stuart took his life, so originally the foundation was called the Thomas Kelly Youth Foundation.
Yep.
In hindsight, calling a foundation after your child is not a great idea.
Right. What was the lesson learnt there?
If there was violence in the city, they'd bring up the foundation and Thomas, and Madeline was at university, Stuart was still at
pressure
school.
And their face, Thomas's face, our names was always in the paper.
Yeah.
So when Stuart, took his life in July 2016, I took a year out. And I asked some people in the foundation to research why are people violent, why do people bully, all those terrible things, why are young kids taking their lives. And so we did this incredible reach of research into what causes those behaviours. And it came back, it's people, we're all born with kindness.
Yeah.
When we're all little, when you were young, you probably had your gumboots on and you're jumping in puddles and your mum may not be happy with you because you're getting dirty, and you see a kitten and you want to pick it up, or a bunny rabbit, or all those wonderful things that children see. But over your life, it gets beaten out of you.
Yeah.
And so people lose sight of kindness, or they're just trying to get money and, fast cars, and, their perspective on life is totally not good.
Yeah.
Rather than helping other people, all they think about is internally. So we changed the foundation to Stay Kind, firstly because it was after Stuart's initials, SK for Stay Kind, which we didn't really talk about much, but that was kind of the back reason. But Stay Kind, because if we had more kindness, people wouldn't be violent. We wouldn't see bullying in schools, and we wouldn't see people like Thomas being bullied horrifically, which happens every day in every school. And when you're bullied, you have low self-esteem, which leads to self-harming, which leads to suicide as well. And so we talk to Australians about staying kind every day. So not about being kind, or I'm going to be kind today. I'm going to wake up every day I'm going to observe people around me on my way to work, in the office, in my local community. And if I see someone struggling, I'm going to help them. I'm going to put a hand out and help them. Even if I'm running late for a meeting, I'm going to stop and help. It's more important. Yeah. And so we talk to Australians about that. So in July, we have what we call Kind July. So we're a week out from July. I know this podcast goes live on the 6th of July. It is the reason why we call it Kind July is both the boys lost their lives in July, as we've spoken about. And we talk to Australians about being kind and kind to one another every day in July. And if we all did an act of kindness in July, every one of our 25 million Australians, that's 775 million acts of kindness in July. If you take that out for a year, it's 9 billion acts of kindness. And, you know, right now coming out of COVID and kids have missed 2 years of school, many haven't got parents who could teach them at home. So they've lost 2 years of schooling, which is a tragedy. Yeah. And they've been socially isolated, which is a tragedy. So, and that's probably one of the reasons why we're seeing self-harming on the streets over a weekend increasing. So it's about recognising that and helping other people and bring that kindness back. So we ask Australians to join us for Kind July this year. Again, staykind.org. You can sign in and join up to Kind July and enact kindness.
You won me when you were speaking at that function, only briefly, but you were talking about staying kind and like if we were all kinder to each other and the effect it would have. And it sort of blew me away, the simplicity of it, but the difference that it could make. So full credit to you pushing that aspect of it.
You can actually save someone's life. Like someone, I know I called a friend one day.
Yep.
And he said to me, I hadn't spoken to him in a while, and he said to me, "Thank you so much for calling me. I was in a really bad place." Yeah. And I said, "David, I'm not going to ask you to tell me what you mean by that." But he said, "Just thank you so much for calling me."
Because we lose our way, don't we? We lose our way. We get caught up with our own issues and that, and you walk past someone on the street that clearly needs help, and
Yeah, and I think David Hurley, who's the Governor-General of Australia, said ages ago, the standard you walk past is the standard you accept.
Yeah.
And if you really think about that, if we see something happening and we walk past it, you've accepted that that's okay, whether it's on your way to work or on a night out or even in the office. And it's really powerful, those words, when you think about them.
Yeah. So if people want to get involved in that?
Again, go to staykind.org, sign up for Kind July. Every day there'll be prompts as to what you can do.
Well, give us a hint of little things like.
And they can just be little things, but writing a thank you note to someone, literally handwriting it. Yeah. Not sending an email.
It'd blow you away if you got something like
something's
that,
handwritten. Yeah. Oh, the police are very good at handwriting things, which is lovely. When you get it, you go, this is really nice.
Say thank you for the police officer when they hand out the ticket.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know. Walk past them and...
Maybe not that.
Maybe that's gone too far. We've gone ridiculous now.
But I think I was buying a coffee the other day and this little boy, he was tiny with his dad, walked past and I was just thinking, thoughts go through your mind all the time. Anyway, when he got to me, he went like this, and I'm smiling and waving as I'm showing Gary what this little boy was doing, and it lit up my life.
Yeah.
And I smiled and waved back to him like a little boy, and I could see the joy on his face that he got a reaction. It's things that easy to change someone's life or buy them a coffee, if there's someone behind you, pay for their coffee, all those things that we've heard about. Yeah. And to think about other people and to turn up with love. And it's not hard to do, but you can make a big difference to other people's lives. And I said, stay kind, always stay kind. Yeah. You're always going to stay kind when you get it.
Well, and it's not even about getting on the website and pledging anything. Just doing it, getting out there and doing it each day.
And we've partnered with Hugh Mackay. Hugh Mackay is 80 years old. He's written 22 books on compassion and one of the most amazing people you can meet. And he called me last year. I'd seen him talk once, but I've never spoken to him before. And he said, "Ralph, I've been you've been given your number. I hope you don't mind if I call you. I said, oh, it's from you. Of course not. And he just said to me, I've come up with this idea for July because we have Christmas in July.
Yeah.
And he said, it really annoys me because it's all about tinsel and families coming together and pretending it's Christmas in July. He said, it kind of has annoyed me for years. And I said, what's your idea? He said, let's have a kindness brunch. And I said, well, tell me about what you're thinking. He goes, and this blew me away when he told me this the other day. He said, 1 in 4 houses has one person living in it.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, some people will be socially okay with that, but many, many, many others are not coping with loneliness.
Yep.
So the kindness brunch is about inviting people in your own street, a neighbour or new Australians who may be really not doing particularly well because they're not assimilating into the local neighbourhood, and invite them in for a brunch, whether it's a bowl of soup or it's a piece of toast, something, conversation and meals go very well together.
Yeah.
And I said, Hugh, I love this. So he gave me like the finished product. He said on the 16th and 17th of July that weekend, every school in Australia is on holidays. So kids can get involved as well. So what we're inviting people to do over the 16th and 17th of July is to think outside of your family and who's in my street. Like we have a neighbour opposite us in Berry who's just had a pacemaker. And I was mowing our lawn the other day and this lady's she lives alone. Yeah. She's very particular about her grass. And I could see it was growing quite long. I thought, Ralph, what's it going to take to go and mow her? So I just went across, didn't tell Kathy where I was going. And I mowed her lawn. It took me about 2 hours. But, I knew that when she got home from the hospital, she'd be smiling that someone cared. And it's just doing those things, just being aware.
I love it. I think anyone listening to this, let's try and get behind it.
Yeah, the kindness branch.
We need it, don't we?
And it doesn't need to be anything big. And homeless, if you're living in the city or in an area where there's homeless people, make them something. Yeah. It's so cold. So the foundation is not taking any donations in July.
Yeah.
So we've closed all our portals down. And what we're asking people to do is to give to the homeless because it's so cold at the moment. Right. So make them some soup, give them a blanket, show them some care. Let's all get behind this and make a difference.
I'm blown away by what you've just described and the whole concept behind it and how much could be achieved by little things like that. Just simple.
And we have to thank you. It was not my idea. It was Hugh's idea. So
yeah. Well, it's an incredible idea. So how do you guys, with all the stuff that you're doing, how have you coped?
Well, we haven't really most of the time, have we?
I think the statistics of when you lose a child of divorce are incredibly high, like very, very high. If you look at the normal divorces that happen in day-to-day people, I think you can triple that in terms of where there's a homicide or a death of a child for whatever reason, medically or by accident.
Yeah.
And I think we've clung to each. When I say clung, I mean that in a nice way, not a bad way. Is because and Kathy said to me many times, we're the only two people who understand what we're going through.
Yeah, that's true.
And therefore we have strength in that, I think, because if you don't have someone who understands what you're going through, quite often we're very aware that we can be seen as victims.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be seen as a victim.
Yeah.
And so you try not to make yourself be a victim, if that makes any sense at all. And, so I think it's because we both get it. Is that right, Kathy?
Yeah, and look, I think even when we walked out of ICU after Thomas's life support was turned off, I remember saying to Ralph when we left the hospital that day, you know what, I'm going to be really sad. And, you might not want to be around me, and the grass is always greener, and there's always plenty of women out there that, might want a handsome fella like you.
A good soul of a bloke like Ralph.
And I said, but nobody will ever get you like I do.
Yeah.
And nobody will ever understand this like I do. And the same vice versa, you're the only one that's ever going to really get it.
Yeah.
And, we've got some lovely family around us.
Yeah.
And, we've probably, I think you become a little bit more insular as well.
Yeah.
Like people always contact me, not because I'm super popular, but they contact me to, I haven't spoken to you for ages, let's go for coffee or let's have a lunch or whatever. And 9 times out of 10, just before the event, I try and get out of it
Yeah, yeah.
And I've said to Ralph many times, because I live by myself when he's away, you know, I get so lonely. And then other times I think to myself, I quite enjoy my loneliness because, again, as I said earlier, it does change you.
Yeah.
But I think we probably really should have probably split up a long time ago. But it's really nice to think, you know, we're actually planning a trip overseas in a couple of months' time and going to see some family, and we're going to walk a short portion of the Camino along the Portuguese coast. The Portuguese coast. We want to do that for the boys. We're not walking any 800 kilometres like a lot of people do. It's very short, and I'll probably end up on a bus. But at the end of the day, we've always wanted to do this when we first lost Tom, and then when we lost Stuart, we said, we've got to do this. And even if it's a tiny little one, and it's just something we're really looking forward to doing together, and hopefully it'll give us that opportunity to connect again, because, you know, the connection kind of got severed along the way.
And what you've been through, but for what it's worth, like I'm sitting here talking to you both now, and I can see the love and respect between the two of you, so it sort of comes across. So.
No, thanks. But I think, you know, Kathy mentioned loneliness, which is, it's a big thing, I think.
Yeah.
You know, Denise Morecambe said to me once when, after we met them, she just said to me, you know, Bruce and I are just the couple who lost a young son to homicide, and people go, now look at them, poor them. And I think that probably is a description that we all get if you get known through the media. But I go through stages where I can't make a phone call. I won't answer the phone. I've got very few friends left, to be honest with you. I feel quite isolated sometimes, but this isn't my own doing. I get it's my own doing.
Yeah.
And the way that I've been able to deal with life is how I did at boarding school, which is just basically everything is kept inside. You just pull down the shutters and you just do life. Yeah. It's not the best way to do it. You know, as you know, Gary, men aren't great at talking.
We don't.
We don't talk. And if you go to Greece or Italy or Spain, you see all these men sitting around drinking coffee, and and I think, wow, what an amazing circle. You know, these men are all talking about life. We don't see that in Australia.
No, we don't do it.
And it's such a shame that we, as men, we can't let our feelings out for fear of being sooks, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's not even just that. I think that we don't talk to our kids enough about some of the bad things that happen in life. You know, like we don't talk about, I'm not saying, you know, you've got a 2-year-old at the table and you talk to them about suicide.
Yeah.
But I think if we were far more open about, you know, death and grief and things that aren't such necessarily nice subjects with our children from the time they're really tiny, they don't even have to understand what we're saying. If we were open about it, I think that, you know, we wouldn't have a society like we have today where, you know, you're not allowed to express your feeling. You're not allowed to talk about the loved one because they're gone now. So don't talk to that couple about their sons that they lost, you know, because let's just forget about it. That's going to go away. It doesn't go away. And I think if we're all really open with our children from a very, very young age about things that aren't so nice in life, then we wouldn't have this terrible epidemic of particularly young people taking their lives. And it's not because they feel they're, you know, oh, you know, my life's miserable, nobody else's isn't. But I do think that there's so much pressure on kids today to be extraordinary, to do well in exams, to be a professional, not, you know, just
there is a lot of pressure that I don't think we had growing up.
No, and because we used to get out on the streets and ride our bikes and play till you know, our parents screamed to get us to come in for dinner. And of course now everybody's behind their technology, and look, as adults we're all behind that as well. Get up, go to bed, look at our last few messages, look at them when we get up. We're all as bad as one another, but at the end of the day we need to talk more, even if it's, you know, sitting down, whether it's talking about something happy or a reflection of a memory, or talking to our young family about things that aren't so great in life, talking more, even if it's once or twice a week.
Yes.
Sitting around the table. We sat in front of the TV. I said to Ralph the other day, you know, I really like it if you came out, I know you're tired, but if you came out, poured your glass of wine and sat on the bar stool while I cooked your dinner. Because I said, what's happening now is I go to the kitchen, I cook the dinner. You're in the TV room. We come in, we eat our dinner, we watch a show together. you say, I'm tired, I'm going to bed. I said, that's the extent of our life. I said, that's not communicating.
Yeah.
It's a bit like Gary on a plane when he goes up to go surfing somewhere overseas and he's going with his school friends and goes, guess what, guys, I don't want to sit with you.
All right, guys, this podcast is about you two. We've all got our failings.
But we do have to talk more.
And look, I think with people that have been through the adversity that you guys have been through, it makes you look at life a little bit deeper and a little bit more honest and raw. And sitting here listening to you guys talk and little things like that, they're the type of things that don't get discussed because we do just put ourselves in the room. Someone's making dinner, the other person's sitting in the room or on the computer, and you're hitting on some really interesting points.
I think we acknowledge these things, but we're not very good at it either.
Well, we're
all human.
We're all a work in progress.
Yeah, I know we're probably coming to the end of the podcast, but I'd just like to say, Gary, I think you're in the police force for 30 years, is what you said. Is that right? 30 years. And I'd like to thank you for all of the work that you've done in this community. You've solved murders, some horrific cases, and your passion shines through from what you're doing now with these podcasts, like interviewing families of homicides and other people involved in crime. And I think it's really important that the public understand the work of the police force and ensuring our safety. But you in particular, you left the police force in not great terms. I know that. And I think it's very unfortunate. And I think the people, since we met a few weeks ago, I've spoken to some friends about you, and they've said it's just a terrible shame what happened to Gary. And I want to let you know the community is behind you. And so thank you.
I didn't expect that, but thank you very much, guys. And it's changed me and opened up my eyes to things, and I'm enjoying sitting down and talking to people like yourselves and understanding the impact of crime. Like in policing, it was pretty, I won't say one-dimensional, but you had a job to do. And now I'm looking at the world of crime and life a little bit differently. So I'm enjoying what I'm doing. And I think it's important people like yourselves coming on and telling their story. And I think it's giving people a greater understanding of this complex world that we're involved in. But thanks, Ralph. That's I meant to give you gratitudes at the end.
No, because I see what the police do. I think, and again, Kathy and I have spoken about this. Had it not been for the homicide division, again, we may not be alive today. Yeah. To be honest with you, the support, the love. We still get phone calls 10 years later from the homicide division saying we're just checking in.
And we never went to one court hearing, and they weren't there to support us.
See, that really heartens me, in that's the way policing should be done. It's not something that you can just switch off. Especially in homicide, and you're involved in people's lives, and you've got to give yourself to the people and make yourself available, and that. So that's fantastic.
And the friendships. This is a family friendship with some very, very special people.
Oh, that's excellent. But look, we'll finish off, and I just want to say thank you for coming on and telling your story, but also understanding that the difference that you're making, and the fact that Thomas's life and Stuart's life has meant something. And I think the way that you guys have carried on since shows how much they were loved and the quality of the people that they were, and the legacy that their lives have left that you're working on now, and the memories. And so to yourselves and Madeline, I hope all the best for the future. You deserve it. And don't catch the bus on your walk.
No, I'm going to try, and only if I get really bad blisters.
Okay. But all the best for the future. And I think the stuff that you're doing with Stay Kind is extraordinary, and it's just so simple and just really powerful. So, if people want to get involved in it, and you're doing some great stuff, guys. So thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much,
Gary.
Cheers.